that the state of national disaster has been lifted. We move our focus to the refugees who are occupying the Cape Town Central Methodist Church. The refugees refuse to be repatriated or reintegrated into communities within Cape Town where they previously lived. They were then moved into tents to get them off the streets as a temporary measure. But now that the lockdown is over, what will happen to them? And where will they go? Is there any clarity on this? Let's cross now to our reporter Ayesha Ismail for more. She's joining us now this afternoon from our studios in Cape Town. Ayesha, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you very much for your time this hour. I understand you've been and spoken to some of these refugees. What did they tell you, Ayesha?
So, Dan, I've been following this story since 2019, and you will recall that hundreds of refugees stormed the UNHCR offices in the city centre, saying that they did not feel safe in Cape Town and they wanted to be resettled in a third country. And then, of course, they were forcibly removed from the UNHCR offices. And as you said in the intro, they then sought refuge in the Central Methodist Church. And with the implementation of the national disaster regulations, they were then moved to two separate tents, one in Belleville, the other one in Kensington. And this is because while they were in the Methodist Church, the refugees split into two factions. Now, they've been in these tents for more than 2 years. And when I went to the tent in Belleville and Kensington earlier today, the refugees were saying to me that quite a few of them had left both tents because some had accepted reintegration and others have accepted repatriation to their countries of origin. But there are still hundreds of them that have stayed behind. And it was interesting, though, talking to them, because they were saying that their demand is still the same, and the demand is that they want to go to a third country. They do not want to stay in South Africa because they still do not believe that they will be safe here. But let's listen to what this refugee at the Kensington tent had to say.
South Africa is very good, a smart country, but the environment and the people as well, that becomes so aggressive. They don't like us, the people from outside. You understand? We got many Chinese, everybody here, but the foreigner in South Africa is we people from Congo and some of the African countries. I do not even understand exactly what's going on. There's a problem that's give me headache up to right now. Just look, same skin, the same color from African people, but you find the people just discriminating and says, you query, you come from this, you come from that. How can we live in such country like that? It's better they can release us. We choose our own, the place that we need to go.
Now, Ayesha, the last time we heard that the refugees were demanding to be taken to places like Canada and Australia. Is this still the case?
Well, Dad, now they're saying is that they don't mind. They are talking about going to places like Namibia and even Zimbabwe and Botswana. What they're saying is they do not want to remain in South Africa because, again, they do not feel safe. What they also point out that they're not in South Africa out of choice. They're here because they fled their countries due to the circumstances there, and they say that they are vulnerable and they need to be protected, and they're calling on the UNHCR to protect them. Let's listen to what this refugee at the Belleville camp had to say to me earlier today.
South Africa, they are the one they are doing us where we are here. Because if they are supposed to know we are human beings, they're supposed to do something, but they never do something. And up to now, people, they're still dying every day. The Dudula operation is there. People, they are dying. And what they are doing is unfortunately unbelievable. The refugees, they are vulnerable people, but they see that the refugees, they are not vulnerable people. But we are just asking for rescue. Anywhere they are, they must come and rescue us.
Yeah, so at this stage, mentioning the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, Ayesha, before I let you go, I interviewed the UNHCR representative a few weeks ago in Pretoria. There is a repatriation program that's also happened that has seen about 40-odd Congolese nationals being taken back home as part of a group of 400 that will eventually be taken back home in this process. These refugees that you've been talking to since 2019 and even today revisiting this matter, are they part of that process by the UNHCR or are they separate from it, Ayesha? Can you clarify?
Dan, they're clearly not part of that process because they were saying they do not want to be repatriated. They want to be resettled in a third country, and they're quite adamant about that. And they're saying they've spoken to the UNHCR about this, and they're waiting for the UNHCR to facilitate their exit to this third country. When that will happen, we do not know. I've already emailed the Department of Home Affairs to find out what the status of these refugees, the ones living in Kensington and Belleville, what's going to happen to them now that the national state of disaster has been lifted, because that was the main reason why they had been removed from the streets and put into these 2 tents, because of the state of disaster. And now that that has been lifted, I'm wondering what will happen to them now, because the refugees are living in appalling conditions. They have very, very little or limited ablution facilities. There are lots of children. Some of the children have been born in those tents. And I think that it is actually something that needs to be sorted out as a matter of urgency, because it is a health hazard.
Thank you very much, Ayesha Ismail, for that update here on the plight of that group of refugees who find themselves in Cape Town.